Je suis le président de ce jury de thèse. Donc aujourd'hui, nous allons écouter Sardor Israilov qui va nous présenter son travail de thèse. Donc je vais vous présenter le jury. Donc, puisque j'ai la parole, je ne sais pas moi-même, ce n'est pas très poli. Donc je suis Christophe Eloi et je viens de Marseille. Donc les rapporteurs de ce travail, donc à distance, nous avons Massimo Cencini et avec nous Frédéric Boyer, ici. Ensuite, les deux examinateurs sont donc à distance David Filla et ici même Li Fu. Et ensuite, nous avons un trio d'encadrement, Guillaume Alibert, Médéric Argentina et Christophe Ropas, qui sont donc les locaux de l'État. Donc, Monsieur Israilov, vous avez donc à peu près 45 minutes pour faire la présentation. Ensuite de quoi, nous allons poser quelques questions. Je vous écoutons.
Merci beaucoup. So, hello everyone. I'm glad that you came here to watch my presentation. I would like to thank Thesis Examiners for funding my thesis. And now I'm going to present you my work with the title From Learning-Based Identification to Model-Based Control of Robotic System, with a focus on study of fish locomotion and visual control based reinforcement learning. So I'm Israel Sardor, and I think most of you already know that more than 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by ocean. But did you know that more than 80% has never still been mapped? Did you know that around 90% of swimming is ambulatory? In recent years, there has been major scientific advances in study of fish locomotion, particularly in our group. There has been new fish-like robotic systems that mimic real fish or being optimized for speed or marine observation. The goal of the group that I work in is to construct biomimetic robotic fish, to study swimming laws, and to design autonomous swimmers. So now, first of all, I'm going to introduce the context and pose you the open scientific questions and tell you the motivations of my PhD. And then I will move with the rest of the work. So the scientific questions that has been triggering researchers for many decades is principles that could unify the link between the swimming speed of aquatic animals to their kinematic parameters. For this, researchers in 2014 have taken many species of aquatic animals of several lengths, starting with several centimeters and ending with several tens of meters, and they wanted to find the link between this swimming speed, velocity, to the length of the aquatic animal, to the amplitude of fin undulation, and to the frequency of fin undulation. So now I'm going to demonstrate you a simple derivation of the force balance when fish is moving in water. So when fish is moving in water, it propels with its tail the bolus of water with a mass proportional to the density of fluid and to the length to the third power. And this mass moves with acceleration that is proportional to the amplitude of fin undulation and frequency to the second power. And this force exerted by the fin to the bolus we need to project on the axis of movement of the fish, which is for small angle defined by amplitude divided by length. So the resulting thrust force is proportional to this quantity here. On the other hand, when fish is moving in water, it experiences a drag, and particularly a pressure drag for high Reynolds numbers. The majority is the case of majority of the fish, and this drag is proportional to the density of fluid and to the speed of the second power and to the length of the second power. So when fish is in a constant movement, the thrust force is equilibrated by the drag force. And we obtain that the speed of movement of aquatic animal is proportional to the amplitude of fin undulation and frequency of fin undulation. So the speed of movement of a chaotic animal is proportional to the amplitude of undulation and frequency of undulation, while the straw number is constant for most of the fish and equal to 0.3. And now the natural questions that you can ask yourself is, how does fish choose amplitude of undulation, frequency of the undulation to maximize the speed or to achieve a particular speed? So for this, many research has been focused on the study of allometry, or the relation of the amplitude of undulation to the length, and they found the linear dependence, signifying, well, it can be rationalized from geometrical point of view. Here there are two works studied. There are much more, but this is two main, two essential. On the frequency side, the question how do fish choose their undulation frequency is not that clear, because the frequency can change along the swimming gait, and fish can choose different swimming gait depending on different circumstances potentially. So another scientific question that is not that clear is how, like most of the fish, they exhibit continuous swimming, meaning that their tail undulates harmonically during their movement, but some fish exhibit intermittent swimming. Here is the image of the amplitude of undulation of a real fish. You can see there is a phase of undulation, and there is a phase of stop. The cycle continues. There has been many models developed for determining the mean thrust force for fish, while focus on two of them, and one is from the researcher of our group. So in 1980, Lighthill studied oscillating airfoils, and he found that the mean thrust force is proportional to the added mass, and this expression, which is quite similar to the what Sanchez found in 2021, that mean thrust force is proportional to the added mass times angle of undulation second derivative. Now, another motivation for this work is to construct a mimetic robotic fish and then to study swimming laws with it. In this work, we employ particularly deep reinforcement learning to predict optimal swimming motion for the fish. So before proceeding with reinforcement learning, I would like to introduce briefly machine learning and its subtypes. So machine learning is a study of patterns in data in order to generalize on unseen data. So one of the types of machine learning is unsupervised learning, which deals with raw and unlabeled data. And it has two main variations, which is clustering. Here you can see the k-means algorithms, given the points in 2D space, is able to find which point belongs to which cluster without human supervision. On the other hand, we have the dimensionality reduction technique. The popular example is principal component analysis. There is also a popular example of the autoencoder network. The network is given an input, an image. It inputs in the it maps this image into latent space, and from latent space it decodes the image, the original image. So another type of machine learning is supervised learning, which deals with labeled data in order to generalize on unseen data after training. So one of the main types of supervised learning is classification, which basically classifies every input to the neural network to this particular class. Here you can see a particular example in computer vision called instance segmentation. It segments, it basically tells which point belongs to which class in the image. And we have also regression, given the input to the neural network, it outputs next value. And here you can see the linear regression. Lastly, but most importantly, reinforcement learning was the focus of this PhD, and it has been vastly applied in computer games, also in board games such as Go and chess and many others. So to illustrate the reinforcement learning concept, I would like to proceed with a simple example of child playing a video game. So here the child is an entity called agent. It has different actions in this game, left, right, or shoot. And when he takes an action, he actuates the environment. The environment is defined by the dynamics of the game, is a PC. The changes over time and outputs the state defined by the screen of the game and the reward defined by the score. So after this interaction loop, agent environment, little by little, agent knows how to maximize its score. And I would like to emphasize that this paradigm of reinforcement learning doesn't need a physical model to operate. So our focus was application of reinforcement learning algorithms on robotic fish, but beforehand, I would like to illustrate you the application on a cartpole system, which has been a benchmark in control theory for over 50 years. So there are two phases of this task, swing up and stabilization, that I'm going to describe in the next slides. So what is cartpole system? Many of you may already know. It's a pole attached to the car, to the middle of the car. And the objective is to move the cart along the line to swing up a pole and stabilize it at an unstable equilibrium. There are two variables that change over time in this system: is the angular position of the pendulum and cart position. And we have a control defined by the consigned cart velocity. This dynamical system is guided by two differential equations, one governing theta evolution. So we have a viscous friction here, we have a gravitational response, we have a component influenced by the cart movement, and on the other hand, we have a component for X evolution. We have cosine, we have a viscous friction, we have a dry friction, and a symmetry component. So the fact that reinforcement learning is able to learn to swing up and stabilize without the knowledge of the dynamical system or these parameters is truly remarkable. Now, I would like you to demonstrate briefly the setup. So it consists of Raspberry Pi that sends commands to DC power drive that actuated the DC motor is pulse width modulation that moves the cart with a tooth belt. And there are two rotary encoders recording the position of the cart in X and the angular position of the pendulum. To demonstrate the benchmark, we applied model-based control, which consisted of energy-based swing-up method relying on Lyapunov theory, which only works for swing-up. And then at small angles near unstable equilibrium, the system can be linearized, and we could apply a linear quadratic regulator to balance the pendulum. So the particularity of this approach is that while it works well, it requires the knowledge of physical model and fitting parameters. On the other hand, we have a reinforcement learning approach to swing up the pendulum. So at the beginning, it doesn't know what to do, and after several hours of interaction, neural network learns how to swing up the pendulum and stabilize at unstable equilibrium. Here in this work, we used this algorithm, DQN. And coming back to the agent environment interaction loop, we have the following. We have an agent defined by a neural network that outputs discrete actions in this particular case to stop the cart or to move to the right or left, the consigned velocity. And we have an environment that changes over time that outputs the state defined by the angular position of the pendulum, the cart position, and their time derivatives. and the reward defined by minus cosinus theta, meaning that the reward is -1 when the pendulum is down, and the reward is 1 when the pendulum is up. And the role of the algorithm is to maximize total cumulative reward called return. You can find more details about this in my thesis. Now I would like to proceed with robotic fish thrust force maximization, the static robotic fish. So we have this robotic fish attached to aluminum rod, which is attached to a force sensor measuring the forces in X and Y directions. Here is a rigid head from PLA material. Here is an elastic tail from elastic ninja flex material. This robotic system features a servo motor characterized by a real angle phi and a cosine angular position phi c. And this servo motor head is attached to elastic fin via two threads. And the elastic fin is characterized by a deflection angle as it defined like this. So the objective in this task is to find an optimal control of phi c with time to optimize certain quantity. Particularly here, it's a mean thrust force. Making the parallel between these two systems, you can see that they are not that much different. You have on the one hand, we have a viscous dissipation and gravitational response. On the other hand, we have a dissipation and elastic response. So two modalities of learning were employed in this work. We had image-based learning based on the images mounted, or the camera mounted at the top of the fin. So we take 4 consecutive images because not only we need to know the details of the undulation of the fin, but also first and second derivatives. And this stack of images at every time step are passed to the feature extractor convolutional neural networks that output the latent space vector, which is passed to the actor critic algorithm. So here I will not go into details, but I'll tell you that actor determines which action should be taken, and critic network evaluates the action taken by the actor. Another mode of learning is purely low dimensionality sensor-based. We have a force in Y direction, its derivative, and cosine angular position for a servo motor. Coming back to the agent-environment interaction loop, we have an agent, here Massimo policy optimization agent, outputting either discrete or continuous actions and actuating the environment that changes over time, that outputs a low-dimensional state, or in the case of images, it outputs the stack of 4 images at every time step. It is passed to the agent. Now I present you the visual results of reinforcement learning is from images. Reinforcement learning from purely low-dimensional sensor state values gives similar results. In just here, you can observe also what the neural network sees after a certain time period of training. So after 2 minutes, algorithm doesn't know what to do, basically stop, and the mean force is 0. After 21 minutes, the algorithm learns how to undulate the tail harmonically, and the mean force increases. And after 120 minutes, the algorithm learns not only how to oscillate with the proper frequency, but the proper amplitude, and the force increases also even more. Now, we combine these two modalities for different maximum instruction angle. It's a distance the servo motor can go maximally. So we can see that with an increasing instruction angle, we have an increasing mean thrust force exhibited by a robotic fish. And it can be rationalized by the fact that with an increasing instruction angle, we have an increasing amplitude of fin undulation. For the optimal frequency of fin undulation, we have that with an increasing instruction angle, our optimal frequency of undulation decreases, and it can be rationalized by the fact that for small instruction angles, we want the system to oscillate rapidly, and for big instruction angles, because of the hardware limits, it can oscillate only with a certain frequency. Now I present you the inference or test results during 2 seconds of the agent policy. Here you can see the control phi-c evolving through time. So we have it takes 2 extremities and it changes with a certain frequency around 2 Hz here, and you can observe also the force in the x direction exhibited by this robotic fish. Now we suppose that there are 3 potential candidate control policies that could optimize the mean plus force. In this case, we suppose it's square wave, sinusoidal, or triangular wave functions. These 3 control policies we applied on a robotic fish with different frequencies for the same time interval, and we plotted the mean thrust force for all of them. And we can see 2 remarkable things here. First of all, square wave control function outperforms both sinusoidal and triangular wave functions, and an optimal frequency of control exists that can be rationalized due to elasticity of the fin. Now, to validate the experimental findings we found before, we want also to make a simulation that mimics the real robotic fish. So here an elastic fin is defined by second-order harmonic oscillator. We have the strength connection defined by this linear equation. We have a servodynamics defined by a parabolic tangent function for the speed of the servo motor. And we calculate the mean plus force as a time integral with this expression. Applying this model in simulation and supposing again that 3 control functions could possibly optimize the mean thrust force, we plotted in these continuous lines the simulated values for these numerical simulations defined by these dynamical equations with parameters fitted from real data. We observe that both experimental and simulated data overlap nicely, suggesting the robustness of previous results and the validity of simulation model. Now, the agent environment interaction looks the following. We have the same type of actions, but instead of having a robotic system, we have dynamical equations here, and below is that 2-dimensional thrust readings. Yep. When we combine different modalities in experiments and simulation learning with reinforcement learning, plotted here in squares, we observe that they all nicely overlap, and analytical model as well, only using the dynamical equation without reinforcement learning, we find that they all agree on the same tendency, suggesting that with the increasing instruction angle, we have an increasing mean thrust force. And with the optimal frequency of fin undulation, we also observe the same tendency that it decreases with an increasing instruction angle. So now to conclude partially, I would like to tell you that we were able to find an optimal swimming gait, which is a square wave control. We found that an optimal frequency of actuation exists that can be rationalized due to elasticity of the fin. And we also found that both image-based and sensor-based modalities for learning give the same results, suggesting the robustness of learning. And now we want to prove it from a theoretical point of view of optimal control theory, namely contracting maximum principle that states that the band control, which is the common name for a square wave control seen before, is optimal for linear systems. And our objective here is to prove the optimality of band control for particular task here is the task maximization under fish dynamics. So before proceeding with this example, I would like to just make you a simple illustration to comprehend the principle. So here is like you are very familiar with maybe these kind of examples. We have a car parked at 0 and we wanted to move to the position X in minimum time possible with a controlled acceleration bounded by certain quantities. So the model of this system is very well known, and the optimal control, it can be also deduced quite easily and intuitively that we need to accelerate on the maximum until the half of the trajectory, and then we should accelerate the rest half of the trajectory to obtain the minimum time possible for travel from 0 to X. So now our objective is to find an optimal average thrust, which is defined by this equation. Under fish dynamics, here we suppose that the servo motor is fast, meaning that it perfectly follows the consigned angular position, and we can neglect the servo motor dynamics. So here you see the dynamics only for fin undulation. So Hamiltonian for this servo motor is described by this equation. This is a component for the thrust force. This is a component for fish dynamics with P1 and P2 co-state variables. And when we reformulate this equation, we obtain that Hamiltonian can be defined by this equation, and it suggests that we need to choose alpha C, which is in relation with the sign of P2 in order to extremize Hamiltonian. And this suggests that the optimal control is band control in order to extremize Hamiltonian or optimize the thrust force. Now, moving forward, I would like to present you the task of robotic fish swim speed maximization that is free in water. So fish locomotion still remains a complex subject because of the intersection of biology and fluid dynamics. Fish have artificial lateral line system, which is not very well understood, that enables fish to perceive the environment. And for several complexity reasons, we first apply different reinforcement learning approaches on simulated environments before proceeding with an experimental setup. So here I describe you two environments based on the custom dynamics and Mojoko engine before moving on the experimental setup. And you can also find the console simulation in my thesis. So simulation based on the custom dynamics is quite idealistic. So we have we also suppose that servo motor is fast, and we can neglect servo motor dynamics, but I performed several simulations incorporating it into the system, and it gives similar tendencies. So for simplicity and presentational reasons, I don't put it in here. So we have second order harmonic oscillator for fin deflection. We have this equation according to the second Newton law. We have mass times acceleration equal to the total forces exhibited on the fish. Here it's a thrust force and the hydrodynamic drag force. And this fish swimming we approximate with a simplistic simulator here defined by the X displacement and alpha deflection angle of the fin. Now the agent is a neural networks that actuate with the continuous actions, dynamical system defined by these equations. And state can be either low-dimensional ground truth state, such that here it is X and alpha deflection angle and their time derivatives, or it can be, because of partial observability of the image, it can be the stack of 4 images at every time step as an input to the agent. And the reward is always defined as a mean speed along the X direction. So as before, we suppose that there are 3 potential control policies that optimize mean speed over an episode, and it is square wave, sinusoidal, and triangular wave. And we found the similar tendencies suggesting the superiority of bang or square wave control, and the optimal frequency of pin forcing. So now applying reinforcement learning based on simulated images or a low-dimensional state of 4 dimensions, we obtained that RL was able to understand what is an optimal policy and find it, particularly for state observation. Now I present you a simple result of inference of when the task was to maximize the speed. So we see that the speed increases very fast at the beginning until the point when the thrust being equilibrated by the drag. And we see that the control policy here is a bang control. Also, I would like to emphasize that reinforcement learning can be used not only to extremize certain quantities, but as a controller. So after several modifications presented in details of my thesis, we were able to servo the system described by dynamical equations before for a particular speed. And here you can see the test values. So when the speed of the consign and the real is very much different, the controller outputs a bang control in order to maximize the thrust force and to go very fast. And when the consign speed drops some value, controller, as we expected, don't do anything, such that the robotic fish can be stopped, slowed down by the drag, and then it outputs some consign so that the thrust force perfectly calibrates the drag force. And so you can see here the amplitude is being smaller with each speed because the drag force is smaller. And moving forward, another simulator applied in my work was based on the Mozoko engine, which is very popular in the reinforcement learning community. So here you see an example of the environment. The fish is constrained in one direction, and the task here is to move as fast as possible in this direction while actuating this small active tail. So as before, we suppose that there are 3 control policies that could potentially optimize the swimming speed: square wave, sinusoidal, triangular. And again, we found the similar tendencies suggesting robustness of previously found results. And we also found that RL using core images were able to find bang control from the images above. And moving forward, there is an experimental setup. We proceeded with quite simplistic setup. We wanted to reuse previous conception with an elastic tail and servo motor. And we also had a problematic of fish if it was fully immersed of the 3rd dimension. So putting a floater on the surface of water elevated the complexity of the 3rd dimension. And we could also communicate with the Raspberry Pi here via Wi-Fi protocol, which is quite convenient. So you can also see we had different sensor, and the robotic system was swimming against the water flow. So also the system accomplished totally wireless system and without any dry friction that could potentially pose a problem when we learn with an RL algorithm. So when this is an image from the top of this robotic system, we have this is the water tunnel. The water flow is in the opposite direction of the fish swim. The fish starts around this so-called restart triangle. It moves forward until certain time is elapsed, and then it moves back with the water flow, and then the episode reiterates. And after some time of interaction, little by little, this robotic fish learns how to swim appropriately in order to maximize its swimming speed. Now, the agent environment interaction looks the following. We have also, like before, a neural network as an agent, discrete or continuous actions. We have the environment defined by robotic fish in a water tunnel, and we also put two different markers in order to extract useful features from an image, because learning from images is can take a lot of time in experiments, and it's better already to pre-process some information. And the state here is defined as a consign angular position for the servo motor, the X and Y position of the first and second marker, and it's repeated with previous time steps as was the case for images, because this permits us not only to find the position and orientation of robotic fish, but also first and second derivatives in order for an agent to control appropriately system. And reward is defined as swimming speed in X direction. Here is a simple example of a PPO agent learning harmonic policy in inference to move with a certain frequency. And when we suppose again that the optimal control is a bang control, and we apply it on the robotic fish with different frequencies of forcing. For the same time, we see that there is an optimum that exists, and reinforcement learning with the protocol proposed before is able to find this optimal frequency, while RL with a static force described in the with a static fish before is able to find a little bit different frequency. And it can be rationalized by the fact that when this robotic fish is in movement, it creates a wave that interacts with the movement of this fish and changes potentially the dynamics of movement. Here I present you also learning with continuous actions. So the algorithm used here was able to little by little learn to make this fish learn to swim in the straight line, and the distance is increased. So you can see the beginning it bumps into walls. Little by little it will be able to move more and more forward, and the distance also will increase for the same time episode. The algorithm used was DROG, and it was adapted to learn here in a particular case asynchronously, meaning that the agent was always learning of policy from a replay buffer while interacting with an environment. So it optimizes the time of learning, and then next steps would be also to make the controller to learn a particular speed, which needs even more interaction time. So I will move forward with conclusion. We had these robotic systems, and we applied model 3 DeepRL for mean thrust force maximization. We found that an optimal control is a square wave function or bang control. We found that both simulation and experimental data nicely overlap, suggesting the robustness of learning and validity of simulation. We also performed speed optimization with this system based on the pre-extracted features of two markers on the top of the balloon. We were able to find that for different simulators, we find the same tendency, suggesting the superiority of square wave forcing, and we found that PPO was able to find this bang control. Now I would proceed with scientific perspectives. So we applied the speed controller, and the next step would be to proceed with an experiment Also, visual servoing task was explained in the thesis. That could potentially be applied in experiments, and we have experimented with different conceptions of this initial open fish robot. And so here we have this robotic fish with servo motor actuating the elastic field, and here we have another same kind of robot immersing water, and it is actuated by a DC motor inside with an elastic field covered in silicone. And next steps would be to add some embedded camera and depth circulation sensor, which basically works with pumping in and out water in the fish body. So lastly, I would like to thank you very much to be present here. I would like to thank Massimo Cencini and Frédéric for reading this long thesis. I would like to thank Christophe Loa, Fu, and Christophe Ravast for accepting the invitation. I would like to thank all of you, particularly the members of my teams at I3S and Infini for empowering me these all 3 years and pushing me to my limits. So thank you all very much, and it's time for your questions.
So I will tell you about what will be in the report. It will be not the exact words of a report because we didn't draft a final version yet. It's sort of a draft. So Sardor Israilov presented his work on using deep reinforcement learning to a swimming robot. This interdisciplinary work combines robotics, physics, and control theory. During the defense, that was very clear. He showed a large amount of work and very interesting results on the control of a swimming robot. The presentation was accessible to a very diverse audience and complementary to the manuscript. During the answer to the question, he showed real maturity, very good knowledge and expertise on different fields, and he showed that he could adapt his vocabulary to a large spectrum of fields. For all these reasons, we'll give him the grade de docteur de l'Université Côte d'Azur en automatique, traitement du signal et des images. Bravo. Bravo.
Merci beaucoup.
Maintenant, il faut que tu fasses un serment, je crois.
Ça fait plaisir. Merci.
Félicitations, Sardor.
Merci beaucoup.
So in the presence of my peers, with the completion of my doctorate in automatic traitement du signal et des images, in my quest for knowledge, I have carried out demanding research, demonstrated intellectual rigor, ethical reflection, and respect for the principle of research integrity. As I pursue my professional career, whatever my chosen field, I pledge to the greatest of my ability to continue to maintain integrity in my relationship to knowledge, in my methods, and in my results.
Salut.